Galloway, certified high performance coach with another episode of the Resilient Mother podcast. Today, we're going to continue the conversation on mastering your unique resilience. And I know this seems daunting, but really we're talking about some aspect of your life that has built resilience in you. And we all have those. And in this podcast, we're going to have authentic and real conversations and stories from a variety of people because we're inclusive here on Moms. We're here to support all moms. Whatever your walk of life, whatever you face, you can be resilient and raise the next resilient generation. Happy mothers, happy children, happy homes. That's the goal. Today, I have for you Sophia, who is a trauma-informed educator and coach, and also an experienced mother who has teenagers that actually want to talk to her. So I'm really interested right now, and I'm sure you are too. Sophia, thank you for joining us. Please tell us more about you.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yeah, so I'm Sophia Omosanya, and I am a mother to three beautiful daughters. One will be 20 in December, and she's in college. The middle will be 17 in January, and then the youngest will be 10 next month. So I've been doing this mother thing for a while, and I kind of went from like a crazy type of mother where I was yelling and just like frustrated and just didn't know how to do with children because growing up, my mom would yell, and I would say she didn't have emotional intelligence is what I've grew to understand, what that was. I mean, she did her best. She was loving, but I just didn't get the best example. And so for me, I realized that love just isn't enough. And, like, you can love your children. Like, I think most parents, we love our children, and no one wakes up and says, yeah, I'm going to screw my kids up. Like, we all have good intentions. And, when they're babies, it's like, oh, they smell good and it's just easy. But as they start to get older, and then they start saying no, and they start talking back, what happens is if we didn't get like a healthy blueprint as to how to manage that, then what happens is our brain just goes into default and like spits out what's familiar, like what was done to us. So, I've done a lot of things that I'm just like so like not proud of with my children, and especially like my middle child. She definitely fits the bill of what they say like a middle child is. And so there was a lot of she was rebellious, and she was that kid that would just like push your buttons. And I mean, it got to the point where, let's see, I think she was like, 3 or 4, and she started like cursing.
Oh no.
Yeah. But she had her own little curse word, like, fucking hell, like, stuff, right? And I used to be so like embarrassed, that I would like, hit her or something just because I would see other people's faces. And I just didn't know what to do with her behavior when she would get angry or, throw stuff, and then as she got older, it got really bad. And I just completely like lost control to the point where like I remember my youngest, who will be 10, had like this diaper bag, and I got so frustrated that I like kicked it and then like knocked her down. And I thought, okay, I'm out of control here. Like, I need some help. So I started taking different parenting classes and everything, and which was helpful, but it was more like in the moment type of, like, it was basically like how to stop yelling and start connecting, things like that, right? And I would try my best to do that. And I even had talks with my kids because my oldest was more passive. Like, she kind of saw okay, mommy can get kind of crazy. Let me
Mm.
kind of fawn is what they call it. Let me appease her.
Yeah.
Right. So then she kind of became the favorite kid. Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Guilty. I did that.
yeah. Yeah. So it is easy to do. Right. And so I would come back and talk to them like, okay, kids, the next time you see mommy like yelling, just remind me to get back in my body. So I'm out of my
Mm.
body. Right. So I started at least like holding conversations with them because I would try my best. But then when I would get triggered and then I would start to like blow up, they'd like, get back in your body. I'd be like, be quiet, because at this point my
Mm.
amygdala, as they call it, is already hijacked, right? And so
Right.
that they kind of went on for like years, and then it got to the point where, like I said, my oldest acquiesced, but the middle, she just kept pushing, pushing, pushing,
Mm.
and it got to the point where I was like, what, a lot of parents may not admit this, but I was like, I don't like her. I don't like my child, right? And I know people won't admit it, but I think that is like, to be honest, like that, because she just was so difficult. Like when Esther do something, she'd be like, no. And I'd be
Mm.
like, wait, what? Like you like you just broke all the rules. Like you don't tell me no, right? And she would just get just right. And it was just like a battle like every day.
Mm.
And it was very difficult. But it was as I started to get into self-development, because I always had this drive to be a better person. And so as I got into self-development, it was like, what can I do to work on this relationship? Because I know this is not good.
Mm.
So I started working, on myself.
Mm.
Um, and so I'm trained in EFT, emotional freedom techniques. I don't know if you're familiar with EFT.
Yep.
Okay. So I started, like tapping every day on whatever would come up for me, whatever would bother me.
Do you
I
want to
just
explain
started
it to your audience though? Because you and
EFT.
I may
Sure.
know what it is, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure they do.
sure. EFT stands for emotional freedom techniques, and it's a modality that, like it says, emotional freedom. It helps to bring in emotional freedom, but it's kind of like a mixture between the Eastern medicine, where you're using your own fingers, but you're tapping on different acupressure points on the
Mm-hmm.
body. But then it's also a combo of modern day psychology, where you kind of get a chance to speak out whatever is bothering you while you're tapping on these points. And it sends a calming signal to the amygdala to kind of tell you, right? Because when you're triggered, your emotional brain is, lighting up. And so this really helps to kind of calm you. And you get a chance to be honest. Because I know I used to like practice cognitive behavioral therapy, where you're thinking different, like change your thoughts, change your life. And it's helpful, but it can, after a while, it's like trying to like micromanage every single thought and reframe it and be positive. So I just started being honest, like, oh my gosh, I'm tapping on these points and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I'm so frustrated with her, like blah, blah, blah. Just being honest and getting everything out. And then I would like, kind of calm myself down, or whatever I was going on through the day. I would tell my children, okay, I would just tell them I'm going to meditate. And so that's kind of how they know me, as going to meditate. And I say, okay, I'm going to meditate. And this was like every day. And I didn't know, even though I know how, because I got trained in EFT, I know how powerful it is, but I was rewiring my brain.
Yep.
Every time I went and tapped and got everything out, I was like re-regulating my nervous system. And all of a sudden, I just started not, getting so crazy and triggered. And I just, became,
Oh, when you find what works,
yeah,
it's such a great thing when you find,
oh,
especially when you try different things and
yeah,
this kind of worked, that didn't really work. Wait, this worked?
yeah.
Wait, what? I
It was,
found my path.
it
And I
was
love that you
like,
brought that up, because what we're talking
yeah.
about is mastering your own unique resilience. And thank you
Mhm.
for being so vulnerable in your share, because
Mhm.
there's some mom who probably needs to hear this somewhere so they know
Mhm.
they're not alone. That the
Yeah,
path is awareness first.
yeah.
What is the problem? Admitting the problem, being honest with yourself. And no matter what circumstances you come from or that you face, you get to choose what kind of mother you're going to be and how you're going to show up. But that may mean you need some help. You may need work. You may need a tool to guide you. And that example you set for your kids shows them what it is to be resilient, shows them that they can be the kind of person and mother that they want to be someday. And that will have a generational effect for the positive. And I don't know why I run into a lot of people here, but we're chain breakers in a lot of cases that are brave to come on here and share. Not all, but some of us. I think that's why resilience kind of resonates with us, is that we had some kind of struggle in our parenthood or in becoming a mother or in the relationships we had that ended, or now we're single mom. There's something along the way that just really made us look at who we are and what we're made of. And when we looked at ourselves in the mirror, we saw some things we wanted to change. We saw some things we wanted to fix because we didn't want to pass them on. Yes, we wanted to end them. We wanted to do better. We love our kids so much that we're willing to make that change where we may not have even been able to push ourselves that far on our own. Like those kids that are the ones that really test us, that really give us all their grief.
Yeah.
Because they trust us, because they know we'll still love them.
Yeah.
When I understood that, I looked at it completely differently, because they need somewhere to be the safe space to do those things. And I definitely want to be the person I needed, the mother I wish I had. And I have the opportunity to do something about it. So I love so much that you're sharing how you did it, and a tool that is powerful, because we can think, I can't change this. But you can. You absolutely can rewire your brain. You just have to find what works for you. And it may be more simple than you think. And this is one method that we're talking about today, but there are many. And that's what I want to encourage with these episodes, is mastering your unique resilience. It's your journey. It's your path. And you can find your way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because my 10-year-old, has been watching me, and I was like, and I always ask them, what can I do to be a better mother? And she's like, you're doing great. She's like, you're spiritual, you tap with people, you tap with me. So like they're watching, and I'm their person. Like I'm the person that they come to. And my daughter is going to be 17, the one that I had so much trouble with. When I started doing the work, and during the pandemic, she went through a time of like depression.
Yeah.
And she came to me and she cried in my arms and said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know. And and our relationship has been solid ever since then. And I remember somebody asking me before in another interview, what happened? What changed that she came to you? And I said, because I started doing the work. And so I became safe. When I stopped blowing up and, giving into those triggers, I became a safe space, so that when she was going through all of this and having these big feelings, she was able to come to me. And so now she's one of my biggest cheerleaders. Like,
yay.
Oh my goodness.
I love that. And it was because you took ownership of your triggers.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing too, is to realize this is my trigger. It's my responsibility to figure out what to do with it. And then she saw that and went, I'm being triggered, but now I know who to go to. I know someone who's learned how to do this. Yeah. And it's funny how our brains have that ability. They're really just trying to keep us safe.
Yeah.
But it's going to go with what's familiar. It's going to go whatever the pathway is that's established, but that doesn't mean it can't change. It is malleable. So if you're listening to this and thinking, oh, I don't know, that kid, that situation, or how I'm doing, or whatever's going on, you always have a choice. Yeah. Every day you have a choice. The negative and positive are available at the same time, and you have a choice. And we're here to share that there is a way. There's a way to rewire the brain. There's a way to fix that relationship and make it a healthy one again. There's a way to become your children's safe space. And it's important that you know that, because you're creating your home, and that's creating what's possible for your children as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to say too, and I didn't realize how special this was. So one of my clients at work, I was saying, like in the summer, like my my teens are like, so what are we doing today? And I'm trying to entertain them every day. And I'm just like, I don't know. When I was your age, I was like out, with a boyfriend and friends and stuff. And she's like, they must really like you. And I realized that like my teens like are with me, like they hang with me, because what happens is attachment is so important to humans.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times they attach to the outside, like to friends, because a lot of times the parents aren't safe. They can't come and talk to them. So then they attach to the peers. And so I realized how valuable that was, that my teens hang with their mother.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
I love that you brought up bonding, because that's something I've become a little more aware of, that especially with my son, who's very attached to me because I'm the only parent that he has, that it's really important that I don't do anything that would sever that bond at the age that he's at in particular. Um, and that I've got to show up a little bit differently there. Whereas my girls kind of have two parents, and he's just got me. And so I wonder about that a lot, of how do I keep that bond as now, maybe being a working mom versus I've been a college student. Like, we're in a transition. We've moved some different things. And what's interesting is, because I've laid the foundation since he was a little baby of our relationship, and I've taken every advantage that I can to create that bond with him, that it's really strong. And so we've been able to transition a lot smoother. And we've had some ups and downs in our schedules and some different things, and a whole lot of things to see if I am resilient and if they are too. And we're getting through it. But I started it the minute I was aware of it. And I would say with him, I was way more aware of what I needed to do as a parent because of the work I started doing, like you were saying, until I started really doing the work. I mean, I kind of always been a good person, a Christian, into like being personal development or a little bit ambitious or whatnot, but not nearly to the extent that I was around the time he came into my world. And it's had such a positive ripple effect, not just on him, but on my girls too, because it's changed how I approach my relationship with them as well. And just people in my life in general. One, they're more precious, but two, the way I show up is way more intentional with each moment of being present with them and savoring that moment and thinking about the impact of what I'm saying with my words, or the emotions that I am bringing, or the energy that I am bringing into the situation, into the conversation. And as a mother, I think universally, the thing we can never fail with is with love. When we come in with love, and you were doing the work that you were doing out of a place of love, that wanting that relationship to be a loving foundation, a loving safe space, a loving parenting experience for your children. And that's what motivates you to make those changes, even when they're hard to navigate at times.
Yeah. And I want to share too something that I learned from a Dr. Gabor Mate. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but I know 0 to 3 is the most crucial years. But what he said is what all kids need is they need a emotionally regulated, at least one emotionally regulated caregiver. They need someone to hold space for all of their emotions so that they get a chance to express them all, because all emotions have a place. That they don't have to perform to get love, that they can be their authentic self, and that they're loved unconditionally for who they are. So if a parent, follows that, then all the things that a lot of parents may be worried about, like, grades and, what's the best schools they're going to go to, things like that, how good they are in sports, those are a lot of things that maybe a lot of parents may worry about. All of that stuff would kind of take care of itself when that foundation is set. Because, I mean, that's like priceless, that you don't have to perform to get love. And a lot of parents may not necessarily admit that. But like I said, it was a time with my daughter, I did not like her. Like, how she was showing up was not okay for me. But I got that from my mom, because when I was, young and I had a smart mouth, and my mother, said, I hope you have a daughter that grows up to be just like you, right?
Oh, you had a mom who did that too? Yeah,
Yeah,
my mom did
yeah.
that too.
So she's basically saying, hey, this part of you, I don't like her. She's not okay, right? So then that became what is called a shadow part, right? So my daughter became me. She was me, right? And it was like I was battling with me,
Oh,
right?
wow.
I was battling with me. So when I learned to love me and even that part of me unconditionally, then I could love her unconditionally. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I was not okay with the way she was.
Yeah.
I just wasn't. And I'm so grateful that shifted, because I can imagine where she would be right now when you have a parent that you don't feel that love, even though I loved her, but I didn't like how
to even
she
have one part of you that you question.
Yeah,
like what was said to you when you were young. I mean, that still carries with you, right?
Oh,
I
absolutely.
have some phrases that have been said to me by my parents. I'm not even going to repeat some of them that have stung, that just have stayed there. And then there are things I have to work through. So I'm glad that I have a teenager who we've been able to start having some real open conversations doing the same work. And she pointed out one time, some of the things I was saying, I had no idea were affecting her in a certain way, because I thought I was being general. I thought I was being kind even, but she explained how they were affecting her. And when she did, it really opened my eyes to just some ways I was saying phrases, or the tone I was saying them in, not conveying what I wanted to communicate. They weren't in a loving way. And I'm human too, and I've lost my temper a few times. And I had a father with a real hot temper who would say things that you just harsh, very harsh things. So I had a goal to always control my temper. But the problem with that is if you try to control and to shut something down, you don't learn how to manage it, is what I found. And that's why I like about what you did is you can't just stop a behavior. You can't just stop an addiction. You can't just stop something. You have to find a way to replace it and start changing that pathway that's going on, so that you can find a different response. So you can have a different automatic response. And so much of that with our brain is getting the subconscious to the conscious mind and back and forth, and ways we connect the brain to different things. And that's why there's just different methods work better for different people. When you find the right one, that's letting your brain find that pathway that it's looking for.
Right. And then I want to kind of talk about my 10-year-old, because I would say my middle daughter has been one of my greatest teachers. And I think a lot of times parents are like, they want the kid to change their behavior, and if the kid changed the behavior, then everything will be okay.
Yeah.
But for, she was my greatest teacher. And I'm so grateful, because she really, my oldest, like I said, by her acquiescent and finding, she was like the ideal kid, like the model kid, right? And I would have been thinking everything was A-okay, right? But the middle daughter was like, no, lady, if you want to parent me, you got to do the work, right? And so I'm so grateful, and it's for her. And then my youngest, she's extremely sensitive, and I've learned a lot with, parenting her as well, because she will call me out, say, if she's crying, and I'm just like, and she's like, why are you making that face? I thought you told me that crying was good, and it is good to get my tears out. Like, she'll call me out, and I'm like, yes, you're right. Or when I was working one day, and she came to tell me something, and I'm like shoring her awake, and she said, your job is more important than me, right? She just like vocalizes things that a lot of kids don't. Like, I remember when I was young, and I was trying to talk to my dad, and he's just like ignoring me. And then I kept calling his name, and he's like, what? And I'm just like, never mind, right? So I kind of got the message, like, I'm not important, I'm not seen, right? And she just comes and tells me, like, well, obviously your job is more important than me, right? So she's like very vocal and calls me out on stuff. And to the point where I'm like, then we get a chance to have a conversation. So she's not like walking away with these limiting beliefs about herself, because she tells it all, right? And last year when she was in school, because with my other children, I used to like be one of those, hot mess moms where I'm like rushing and they're like eating in the car, like, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go, like to get to school and stuff. And I tried to pull that with her, and she was like dragging, like slowly getting out the car and like being tardy, things like that, right? So I had to shift. So I started getting up sooner in the morning. I started tapping and meditating and everything in the morning, and then being able to like be calm and centered, because she was not having it. I was not going to be doing that rushing her in the morning. So because of her being vocal, she calls me out. She reminds me of all the things that I've taught them. And when I might get off of my square, she reminds me. And then she was just not having it. She was like, no, you're not going, because she would go to school dysregulated because I'm like rushing and stuff. And then she'd go to school and, the teacher would be like, what's going on with her? She's kind of sad this morning. Right. So I had to shift me. Right. So again, another teacher. So I think if we look at our children as like teachers, and they're here to like help us grow, and that's what they call conscious parenting. That was something that I got into that was really helpful. And my children are like my biggest teachers. And they help me to be able to grow. So that's what I wanted to mention about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. My kids are definitely my biggest teachers and stretch me in ways nothing else can.
Yes.
Is your video okay on your end? I'm just going to do this because it's been going a little fuzzy in and out. But
really? Yeah, I didn't notice any.
Okay. Well, it might. What's funny is sometimes this records and it looks funny here, but in the recording it's fine. But I was just noticing that.
Okay, hopefully. But yeah, I don't see any issues.
Hopefully we're okay. What is going to make me mad about that is I pay for high-speed internet, like extra through my apartment complex. So if they didn't pay for it, I'm going to be pissed. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, they've not been great. So I'm going to go double check on that here in a minute. So with your journey, you've been able to fix these relationships with your daughters, not just the middle one, but I'm sure the other two have benefited as well from this. And where is that at today? And how would you like describe it from where it was to where it is now?
Well, first of all, I would say like before I was, I would say like kind of like passive aggressive. I was one of those parents that was kind of, loosey goosey, go with the flow type of parent, and then just like jab out. And if they didn't do what I said, so more confusing. It's confusing to a kid. Like it would be better to just be one way, right? But it was like I would, And if they said something that I didn't like, I would, snap, or if I got triggered, I would, get angry and things like that. And then sometimes I could be, nice and loving, and because that's what I experienced. That's how my mom was, right? And so it was confusing. And so that's kind of how I was. And I know that they told me I used to didn't smile. They said, "Mom, you never really smiled," and they said that I was boring. I was boring and I didn't smile. Because I've done a lot of work on, getting more into being more in my fullest expression. I think I was kind of just like a watered down version of myself. I was kind of just wearing this mask, and that's why I said I was passive aggressive. So like in public, everybody thought, oh, she's so nice, and oh, she's such a nice mom. And it was like this persona, as my mom calls it, a persona. And then I started to, as I started to do the work and regulate my nervous system and develop self-love, because I did not.
Sounds like you were able to become congruent with yourself instead of being two different people, or maybe arriving at different situations, which can be what happens with trauma is you show up differently in different situations, and things are very different at home than they are out in public or out at church or in front of certain people. And I definitely grew up with that. And so it was confusing to go back and do the work and go, okay, which parts were me? Which parts were not me? Which parts
Yeah.
do I want to keep and which ones do I
Yes.
want to let go? And
Yes.
it took a lot of time and real honesty with myself to figure that out. So I honor the work that you do there, and I'm familiar with it myself, and it's a unique journey for each person for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was me and me now. I have a job that I work with people with anxiety and depression.
Mm.
So it really has opened up my eyes a lot, and I kind of started diving into learning all about like trauma and the effects of trauma. And it's not just an event, it's what happens inside of you. It changes your physiology, your biology. It affects your mental, emotional health, your relationships, like, all of that, right? So I just been on this journey of self-development and, breaking cycles and learning the effects of trauma and just transforming and spirituality and just working towards being the best version of myself. And my children just really, when they write papers, they write about me and, how I'm their model. And I'm just so grateful for that, because that's really, the best gift, the best parenting advice, and I didn't make this up. I got like Brene Brown. Somebody's like, what's some good parenting advice? Work on being the best version of you.
Yes, amen.
Like that's pretty much it, right? And then you're a model, and then the kids will follow suit. And so they respect me, and I'm a coach and I'm coaching them, right? So they text me from school, and I coach them, and sometimes they have their friends reaching out to me. And my daughter in college, she is like I said, she's a model kid, good grades. And I'm not forcing, it's not a forced thing. She just gets good grades. She's in all these activities, like just a model. She's a mentor, all these things, right? But it's amazing, right? Parents, they love to brag about their kids, but what I'm most proud about is she calls me because she has days where, mentally she's not doing well. And she reaches out to me, and I work with her. We'll do some tapping or, some breathing and kind of talk things out and, things like that. Because I think people, think, you see her on pictures, she's having the best life. That is true.
Yeah.
But the emotional and mental, like, that is so important. So I'm grateful that I'm able, that I'm in this space, that I'm able to help them work through that as well. And I
It's
think that's
wonderful your safe space now, as you talked about, as they
yeah,
go through things, as they go
yeah.
through their own struggles, as they go through their own changes, as they have
Mhm.
their own awareness on what they want to work on, they're coming to mom. And
Yes.
wouldn't that be the best thing if we could all be mothers in that way, that
Mhm.
we aren't just mom for a time and then they go and they're adults. Like the
Right.
idea is to have this lasting relationship that goes on where they
Mhm.
want to be around us as adults, as they know they can turn to us, because who else has the best intention for their children? Their mother. But
Mhm.
do we know how to really be that mentor? Do we really know how to be that support? Are we the safe space? We
And
have to be
that's the
safe
key.
within ourselves first. We
You
have to be
do.
supporting ourselves first. We
There
have to
you
be
go.
our own mentor first.
Yep. Yep.
You are the answer that you're looking for,
Mhm.
is really what it comes down to.
Yep.
But you got to be willing to do the work. And that's what we talked about today. And you're going to have your own unique journey. It's going to look like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And sometimes it's hard. And sometimes you're lucky and you're even coming from a good background, but you have something that comes into your life you weren't expecting that throws you off, that maybe takes time to recover from. This applies to everyone because we're all going to have ups and downs in life. And so are our children. And we're even going to have those children that challenge us, that make us aware in a reflection of exactly who we are and is that who we want to be or not. Thank you for this discussion today, Sophia, and for your vulnerability and just the willingness to be just so open and honest with your story and your journey and your relationship with your children. It's just a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
Where can people find you if they would like to work with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. So I don't know if my name will be shown somewhere that people can just like look me up.
Yeah, it'll be
my
right
name.
here, and it'll be in the comments. We'll have some stuff. It's here.
Okay.
I promise.
Okay, cool.
All right. I believe in you. Believe in yourself. God bless. And we will see you next time.